Today I want to talk about Jack the Ripper by the great Link Wray. And I realised that recently on this channel I've looked at some quite complex, difficult to play stuff, and last week we had some quite heavy music theory. So by way of complete contrast, I thought today I'd be looking at some raw and primitive rock and roll. And this track is nice and easy to play, it's quite beginner friendly, and even if you're not a beginner, I hope you're going to enjoy learning to play this one. I certainly still enjoy playing stuff like this. In fact, I think one of the main reasons I got into guitar in the first place was just to make some noise and play this kind of wild, raw music. I certainly didn't get into guitar to practice my arpeggios or to work on the caged system. Important though that stuff is, kids. Anyway, let me play through the track for you, then I'll talk about how to play it. So Link Wray, undoubtedly one of the all-time greats, and you can describe his style as rock and roll or maybe rockabilly, and there are elements of surf guitar in his playing as well. And he's a very influential player, often described as a forefather of punk and of metal. You will know the track Rumble, which is Link Wray's most famous piece of music, and you can hear that all over the place. It's used in films, it's used on adverts currently here in the UK for car insurance or something, which is a bit of a shame and not terribly rock and roll. But this track, Jack the Ripper, perhaps not quite as well known, but an equally great piece of music, I think. Recorded in 1963, or it came out in 1963. I'm not sure exactly when it was recorded. I couldn't actually find much information on the recording of this track, but it's a gloriously messy and primitive bit of rock and roll. As I said, it's nice and easy to play, so let me take you through how to do it. So we're in the key of A for this one, I think, though the original recording is slightly flat. And most of the tune is just this great hypnotic, repetitive groove, and the bass and drums are just the same throughout. You've got the bass doing this kind of two-note bass line. The drums are very similar throughout most of the tune. And Link is really just playing this series of riffs kind of floating over the top of this static groove. And the first riff you hear, the opening riff, and as riffs go, it couldn't be more simple really. It's just a two-chord riff, and one of those chords isn't even a proper chord. We've just got the open strings on the guitar, so you could call that an E minor 11, I suppose, if you wanted to, but it's just the open strings on the guitar. It's kind of 6 open strings. Sometimes I'm not really hearing the high E string. And then we've got an A chord, and again on the A chord you could leave the open low E string ringing if you wanted to, or you could just try muting it with your thumb if you want a bit of a cleaner sound. And the timing wise, we're playing the open strings on beat 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, hitting the A chord on beat 1 and then just letting that A chord hang. It seems to me that Link just lets that chord hang for as long as he feels like it. I can't really discern any particular pattern in the arrangement of this tune. And in fact, one of the most difficult things when getting this tune together was not actually playing the riffs, but learning the arrangement and the number of bars he's got on each riff and the amount of space he's got between the riffs. And I try to get that correct in my performance of the tune. I don't guarantee it, but I try to stay true to the original recording. But I recommend that if you're playing the tune, or if you're playing it with a band or on your own, you probably don't want to try and imitate Link's arrangement exactly. It was almost certainly a spontaneous and improvised arrangement that they wouldn't play the same way twice. And it's the kind of tune where you can just play the riff, let them hang for as long as you feel like it, and then when you're ready, move on to the next riff. So we've got our main riff a couple of times, I think. And then we've got this twangy riff. And again, it's very simple, just the open strings on the guitar. So we've got the low E string and then the open A string. And for maximum twang, you could try playing that riff down towards the bridge of the guitar. And it's up to you if you want to mute the low E string when you play the A string. Just clarifies the sound of the riff a little bit, or you might prefer just no muting at all and just letting those two strings ring. It's a bit of a messier sound. The next riff you hear is all played on the high E string. It sounds like this. Nice and simple, just starting on an E, sliding up to the 15th fret, then up to the 17th fret, just repeating that, and then we're coming down 15, 12 to 10. So it's a kind of a pentatonic melody, pentatonic scale really, I think. And then we've got this. So the 10th fret and the 9th fret. And what you can hear on the recording is a little bit of whammy bar vibrato, so that's why I chose my Jazz Master today. And just on those sustained notes you can give them a little bit of a wiggle. Then we got some more of this twangy stuff. I think repeating that riff a couple of times. And then we're heading into the bridge. It's got a little riff leading into the bridge. This is played on the A string. It's just the open A, and then the 2nd frets and the 4th frets. And for the bridge we've got our first proper chord change. We're moving to the 4 chord. And the bridge is made up of 1, 4, 5 kind of blues changes. And the riff you hear is this one. And wouldn't you know it, it's a dominant 7th arpeggio, which if you watched last week's video, you're going to know all about. So we've got a D dominant 7th arpeggio. We're starting on the root at the 5th fret on the A string, up to an F sharp, which is the 3rd, and an A, which is the 5th, and then this C note here, the 5th fret on the G string, is the flat 7, and then we're going up 2 frets to the root again. So it's a very common kind of rock and roll. I suppose it's a kind of bass line riff, I suppose. I think we're playing that 4 times. And then we're going back down to the 1 chord, which is an A. So exactly the same riff, same fingering, but we're starting on an A root note. And I think that riff is played 4 times. And then we're heading to the 5 chord, which is E or E7. So exactly the same riff, but we're starting from an E note, so 7th fret on the A string. Just playing that once and then down to the 4 chord. ending with a strum on an open A chord. So I've chosen to play this riff with all downstrokes, and in fact I think I'm playing this entire tune with just downstrokes. I think that's got a bit more of an aggressive sound, and it seems more in keeping with the spirit of this track, though you are of course free to experiment with adding some upstrokes in some of these riffs as well. That might be a bit more of a relaxed way to play it, and it's played at quite a fast tempo, so you might find it a little bit easier if you use some upstrokes from time to time as well. We're on into the second half of the tune, and we've got more of the same material. So we've got the main riff. It's playing that twice, I think. Some more twangy stuff. And then the next new riff you hear is this one. So this riff all played on the B and G strings, and it's based on this little double stop shape. It's a perfect fourth interval. We've got an E note at the 9th fret on the G string and an A note at the 10th fret on the B string, and occasionally just sliding into that shape from 1 fret below. Then sliding down 2 frets, and then coming down to this shape here. It's a C sharp and an E, so 6th fret and the 5th fret, and if you wanted to you could just let the open top string ring out there as well. Again, it's all downstrokes for me on this particular riff. Then we got some more twangy stuff, and it's at this point in the track that you can hear Link turning a tremolo pedal on and off. I suppose technically it probably wasn't a tremolo pedal in those days. I don't know if tremolo pedals had been invented in 1963, but he was switching on and off the tremolo circuit in his amp, and it's a lovely fast tremolo sound. It's this kind of... Then he repeats the 4th riff. Tremolo back on, some more twangy stuff. And then we're leading into the second bridge. And the second bridge is identical to the first, so it's those same dominant 7th based riffs. And that pretty much wraps things up. The song ends after the second bridge just on an A chord. So I think those are the main riffs that you can hear on the tune. Of course, listen carefully to the original recording and you'll be able to pick up on some of the slight variations and nuances of Link's playing that I'm not really able to reproduce here. Let me talk you through my gear setup. And I've actually got no idea what Link Wray would have used on this original recording. I did try and do a little bit of research but couldn't find much definite information. So if you know what he might have used on this recording, do let me know. I'll be quite interested to find out. But I'm just using my own gear, just stuff that I thought would be appropriate for this track. So guitar is my Jazzmaster. It's a reissue, I think a 65 reissue Jazzmaster. Amp is my Marshall Studio Series, which is a Plexi style Marshall. And all of the overdrive is naturally coming from the amp today. And I'm using a few pedals as well. So I've got a bit of reverb from my Surfy Bear reverb unit. And I've got some tremolo I mentioned earlier. That's coming from a full tone Super Trem. And finally I've got a little bit of delay, just a slapback delay from the Catlin Bred Belle Epoque Deluxe. Let's have some sounds then. So this is guitar just going straight into the Marshall with no pedals engaged. And I'm going to add the reverb. And then the delay, which as I said is just a slapback kind of delay. finally the tremolo, which the thing I like about the full toner is it's quite versatile and you've got lots of options. So I've got the tremolo speed set quite fast, and I've got the mix at about 50%, and I think it's set to the hard waveform, so the slightly more aggressive style of tremolo. So well, that's it for this video. Detailed and accurate tab can be found up on my Patreon page along with my backing track, so check that out should you wish. Thanks very much for watching. I shall see you next time.